Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. We open on a cold winter's night with William Randall driving to his Manhattan penthouse from Vermont. An auspicious-looking wolf with glowy yellow eyes runs out in front of his car and pulls the old insurance scam. When Randall gets out to check on the wolf, it does the little eyelid peek like children do when pretending to be asleep. Realizing this man's about to just drag him off the road without even calling somebody, the wolf bites him on the hand and then runs away. Confused as hell as to what just happened, Randall returns to his car and finishes his drive home, where he's the senior editor of a large publishing house. His job's in danger, so Roy and his assistant Mary says that if Randall gets fired then they quit, but they don't hold any leverage. The head of marketing and Randall's protege Stewart actually has some sway with the boss but is a backstabbing weasel, so don't hold your breath. The Two-Face acts polite to writers like Maude and even to his mentor Randall, but is secretly doing Randy's wife Charlotte behind his back. After work, Randall goes to see Dr. Ralph about the wolf bite on a full moon, but nobody in this movie's ever heard of a werewolf. He just says there's no rabies, so that night Randy takes Charlotte to his boss's estate for a lavish dinner party with plenty of snobby guests. Although he can play Downton Abbey like any other, Randall's not in the mood for shenanigans, so he behaves rudely towards the socialites. During their meal, Will's new boss Raymond pulls him away to say that he's demoting him and that Stu will take his place in the company. While trying to comprehend moving to Europe, Randall approaches one of Raymond's horses, causing it to freak out at his presence. Suddenly feeling a pain in his chest, Randall wanders off and sits down, where he meets the boss's daughter Laura. She acts like a rebellious teenager towards her father for some reason and knows how to catch a stranger when he almost collapses. Laura cleans him up while remarking about Randall being old and then sends him back to his cheating wife with a deflated ego. Randy feigns enthusiasm and then leaves with Charlotte while seething over the demotion the entire drive home. Despite this, he feels more youthful than ever, so that night Randy gets randy with the missus for the first time in a long time. It's a pleasant surprise, but then he sleeps for 20 hours straight and only wakes when Charlotte returns from work. Randall begins changing, including growing hair from the wolf bite, so he now needs to give his hand haircuts. The next is his sense of smell becoming enhanced, that allows him to smell the tequila on his coworker's breath, always a handy one. Then he develops supersonic hearing, but most people are just talking crap about him, so he grabs his things and leaves. Charlotte said she was out of town for work, but Randall smells Stewart on her robe, so he storms down to his apartment. He angrily forces his way inside, snapping at Stewie as he passes, and finds his wife in bed with another man, so to speak. Taking it like a champ, he just walks off without ever speaking to her again, and the next day moves into a hotel. He confronts Stewart the next day at work, who's like, "Sorry for banging your wife," so Randy promises that he'll get him back. Roy and Mary are ordered to call the writers so that Randall can begin poaching Raymond's client list. He drives out to Raymond's estate to tell him he resigns, but while leaving sees Laura riding around on her horse. As Randall approaches, the scared beast throws her to the ground, so Laura gets up angry until her father comes out. She then pretends to have a date with Randy simply to make her father mad and takes the homeless, jobless stranger to the guest house. He's told to keep things platonic, but they share peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, which is pretty damn romantic. Laura wants somebody to love her for her personality, but the problem is that she's rude, so the only suitors are in it for the looks. Because she opens up so much, Randy decides to tell her about his encounter with the wolf and how he believes that he's possessed. He begins to feel sick as the sun goes down, so Laura lays him down in her guest house, where he passes out with a fever. That night Randall wakes up looking all hairy and leaps out of the window like a rabbit to go chasing after a delicious deer. He moves incredibly fast for an old man who moments ago was moving like this, and runs down the deer with a beautiful aerial attack. The confused animal is eaten raw by the human, who wakes up in the morning covered with Bambi's blood. He gets in his car and leaves without saying goodbye to Laura, and immediately visits his doctor like, "What the hell?" Ralph says, "Nah, you're perfectly fine, it's probably just sleepwalking," and I begin to question this doctor's qualifications. Next, Randall outmaneuvers Raymond when confronted with his threat of stealing their biggest authors. He's impressed that Randy was even willing to do something like this, and gives him a new contract that will let him stay at the publishing house. Later in the day, Randall visits a professor who wrote a book about the supernatural and can explain what's happening to him. Dr. Vijay tells him that the wolf was a demon that passes the spirit of the animal on to anyone it bites. You only become evil if you already had evil inside you, and Vijay gives Randy an amulet that he claims keeps the wolf at bay. He then begs Randall to turn him, as he would prefer demonization to dying of old age, but that will be a hard pass. Keeping the amulet though, he then calls Laura when he gets home to say that he didn't just ditch her the other night. She agrees to meet him for breakfast the next morning, but that night he's taken over by the wolf again, so goes out hunting. He breaks into the Central Park Zoo, and while checking out the Madagascar exhibit, 2 police officers interrupt the buffet. One tries to handcuff Randy, but he leaps over the giraffe and flees into the park while keeping the officers' cuffs. A trio of muggers attempt to steal his wallet, but Randall uses a weird effect to kill 2 of them, leaving 1 witness alive. Nothing comes of it, and the next morning Randy signs his new contract with Raymond, then gets to break the bad news to Stewart. This involves him firing his wife's lover as he begs for a second chance, then marking his territory all over his fancy shoes.
Sweet shoes. Asparagus.
His mood changes when, washing his hands, Randy finds fingers in his handkerchief from one of the muggers last night. Rushing home, he's met by Charlotte in the lobby, who says that Stewart meant nothing to her, but that just makes Randall feel even worse. Laura waits until the wife leaves, then gets a maid to let her inside Will's room, where he's handcuffed himself to the radiator. He fears that he killed someone last night, but Laura removes the cuffs anyway, as it's time for their obligatory lovemaking scene. It just fades to black, and the amulet fails to prevent Randy getting all wolfy and running off into Central Park while Laura sleeps. The next morning, Detective Bridger arrives with the coincidental news that Charlotte was murdered last night in Central Park. Randall suspects that he did it, but Laura, the lawyer, tells him not to say anything and for the cops to get a warrant. When they leave, she drives Randall to her father's estate and begins to suspect something when seeing the mud on his shoes. Upon arriving, Randy asks her to lock him in the stables, but Laura still doesn't believe him until she receives a call from Bridger. He got that warrant, but says that they can't match anything to Charlotte's corpse because it was contaminated with canine DNA. This alarms Laura, who's now visibly nervous around Randy, and agrees to lock him in the stables no matter how much it pisses off the horse. She then drives down to the police station to give them a statement, but runs into Stewart, who can smell Randy on her. He's visibly changed by the bite he received from Randall and makes a pass at Laura with an old-fashioned crotch sniff. Laura says that she's flattered, then hurries away as she realizes that Stu is more likely the one who killed Charlotte. He tries to direct Bridger in Randy's direction by saying that he heard him threaten to kill his wife, then follows Laura to the estate. She tells the security guard not to let anybody inside, but Stewart just runs him over to get onto the property. He then kills the second guard, who should have known better than to let somebody who looks like this so close and has his neck bitten out. Randall is locked in the stables, but the amulet is actually working to prevent him from changing and contain the wolf. Stewart, on the other hand, has gone full furball and threatens to eat Laura, among other unsavory things. She knees him in the puppy balls and hits him with the extinguisher to try make it to the lock, but is caught before releasing Will. Stewart then tries make Randy watch as he checks the brand tags of Laura's clothing, so he removes the amulet to escape. The wolf spirit overtakes Will or whatever, and he leaps out of the stable to begin the first and only Wolfman fight 2 hours into this movie. Stewart's winning, especially when Laura delivers him a pitchfork before being tossed aside like a chew toy. He stabs it into Randall's shoulder, but then just runs away for some reason, as I guess coward is just in this dude's nature. Werewolf catches him by the pond and after a beatdown throws the semi-defeated Stewart against the stairs. As he turns to leave, the villain charges Randy with a pair of garden shears, but is shot right out of the sky by Laura like a furry clay pigeon. It's a rather simple way to kill the supernatural, and the hair disappears as Stewart reverts to his normal backstabbing self. Randall tries to comfort a traumatized Laura, and though not looking his best, she doesn't seem to mind the hair. The spirit of the demon wolf didn't make him become evil, but Randy the Wolfman still feels like a monster and runs off into the woods. He completes his transformation into a shifty, bright-eyed wolf while the police arrive at the estate to speak with Laura. They tell her that Stewart was just shot dead only a stone's throw away from her guest house, but Laura pretends she has no idea. She tells Bridger that she can smell vodka on his breath, which would be a nice way to imply that Laura's also possessed, but it's made obvious with a close-up of her new yellow eyes. And the movie ends.